GameCube, like. Video, start. Intro, roll. The Nintendo GameCube. That's the topic of today's video. So, the GameCube was released back in 2001, and it was competing against Sony's PS2 and Xbox from Microsoft, the original one. At the time, the PS2 was doing really well and Sony was absolutely dominating the market with it. Xbox was the new kid on the block and they were doing alright, and Nintendo was keeling over and dying. The GameCube did not do nearly as well as Nintendo would have wanted or it should have in terms of sales. This was mainly due to the fact that it didn't have a disc drive for DVDs and it couldn't play them. The PS2 and the Xbox could both play DVDs, and so, well, people were more likely to buy them, and the GameCube could not. However, I still like it, man. The GameCube, out of all the Nintendo consoles, has had some of the most consistently good games I've played. I think the only one that I'd say has had better consistently good games has been the Wii for me. The GameCube, however, has some of my favorite games on it. So, GameCube games. There's a decent amount of them. Games like Mario Kart Double Dash, The Legend of Zelda Wind Waker, both of which I've covered on my channel already, by the way. Paper Mario The Thousand Year Door, or F-Zero GX, or Animal Crossing, which was the first time that Animal Crossing was even introduced to the West. There's also Mario Sunshine, which, I mean, it's a bit of a controversial one. Some people really like the game and think it's a really charming 3D Mario, and other people think it should burn in hell. I personally am with the group who think it should burn in hell. Mario Sunshine is definitely a buggy mess. However, it still has its own fandom and its own people that like it, if you can consider them people. And there's also Smash Bros. Melee. I don't want you thinking I'm a Smash player, though. Damn it! Damn it! Damn it! Damn it! It also features multiple Mario Party games, which is like, I mean, who cares? But they were still there. And the very end of its life cycle, The Legend of Zelda Twilight Princess, which was a cross-release with the Wii. The console itself looks really goofy. It has a handle. Sure glad I decided to bring my GameCube to lunch. I think it's stale, but I mean, I like it. It came in a lot of different color variants, and there was even a completely different variant of the GameCube known as the Panasonic Cube. It was a variant that was released only in Japan, and it was basically supposed to solve the disc drive problem. Nintendo teamed up with Panasonic, decided to make a console with a disc drive. It failed miserably and is now one of the rarest Nintendo consoles to exist. The GameCube controller, while being an unorthodox controller, I mean, it's a really good one. It works surprisingly well. I mean, this is one of my favorite controllers out of all the Nintendo controllers. I said this in my Nintendo controller video. And, I mean, it's weird. It really definitely is weird. Look at the button layout. The button layout on the GameCube controller has it so you've got a large central A button and you have all the smaller buttons orbiting around it. And on a normal controller setup, you usually have one button up here, one there, one there, one there, you know, up, down, then like one to the left and right. However, on the GameCube controller, they've got this. And honestly, it works pretty well. The reason that this works is because the button you're pressing the most is the A button, and when there's a large A button to press, it actually is really nice to play games with. And all the other buttons are also decently nice on it as well. The D-pad on the GameCube controller is a lot mushier than I'd want it to be, and I mean, one of the best things about the GameCube controller, analog triggers. Nintendo, by the way, this was they haven't made a normal controller with analog triggers since this. The only one they've made after this was the Wii Classic controller, and the analog triggers aren't used on any games with that, so there's no point. The GameCube controller, however, had analog triggers, and there are games that use those analog triggers. I don't know why Nintendo hasn't added these back. However, the GameCube controller has analog triggers. I don't know why I mean, I do know why they've not been added back, because Nintendo got a lawsuit filed for them, but, you know, still. These are really cool. The controllers, in terms of its sticks, are also pretty good. A lot of people complain about the C-stick on the controller, and I'll admit it's not amazing, but it's not unusable either. It definitely is smaller than I would like it to be, but I mean, it's not the worst controller stick that I've ever had to use. I mean, I still quite like it. Central home button here for starting and pausing games, and a Z button here without a matching one on the other side. Why on earth did they do this? Why is there only one Z button? I don't know why there wasn't a second one to match, and it's, to this day, really annoying. It also has a bump on it for some reason, which I don't get. The game discs on the GameCube were these really small little things. Discs look like this, and compared to normal side discs, I mean, this doesn't hold nearly as much data as the normal sized one. What this meant is that games could not be nearly as big on a GameCube than they could be on something like a PS2 or an Xbox. The discs, yeah, they were definitely a hindrance, and it was also the reason as to why DVDs couldn't be played on the GameCube, which again is kind of why the console completely failed. Everyone at the time really wanted something that could also play DVDs, and Sony and Microsoft provided that to them. Nintendo did not. This made the GameCube a lot less appealing to people who were looking to buy a console at the time. Additionally, a lot of people who'd grown up with Nintendo were now in their teen phase, and Nintendo was kind of viewed as the kids' company, and I mean, they kind of were. And because of that, not as many people were wanting to buy a GameCube compared to something like a PS2 or an Xbox because of peer pressure and not wanting to be seen as a young child or anything. They wanted to be seen as more mature, and so they bought, again, the PS2 or the Xbox, so they have higher rated games and all instead of Mario Kart. But I'm not gonna lie, GameCube still is a really good console. All of the GameCube games I have played ever still hold up to this day. Oh, by the way, the GameCube had internet connection as well. Yeah, so something not nearly as talked about on the GameCube is its LAN connection. There was this thing called the GameCube LAN adapter, which you could plug into the bottom of your GameCube, and you'd be able to connect that to either your internet for like one game, or you can connect it to other GameCubes to have multiple people on different GameCubes and on different TVs playing the same game. This was the little thing that you would take out of the bottom of the GameCube and you'd put the LAN adapter in here and it would connect. There was one game that featured this online, I can't remember what it was called, it was some weird anime game, and there were other games that featured this locally, where you connect one GameCube to the others and you'd be able to play. One of the main ones who did this was Mario Kart, where you could have up to 16 players in one Mario Kart game, which, I mean, I'm pretty sure at the time, actually I'm pretty sure until Mario Kart World, was the most amount of players you could have in a single Mario Kart lobby without, like, modding the game. So, the GameCube really was a bit of an innovator there. It didn't, however, feature, as I'd said, really full internet connectivity. Really, it was only one game that had it, and there was a lot of other games at this point that were starting to go fully online. And the PS2 and Xbox also had this, which was another reason not to buy from Nintendo. At the end of the day, the GameCube as a console, it's good. I like it. At the time that it was released, not as good. I mean, compared to the other consoles that you could also get, it just was the easier option and simpler, and it makes more sense to get a PS2 or an Xbox compared to a GameCube at the time. The GameCube just was lacking way too many features for many people to want to buy it. And so the GameCube, to this day, while being honestly nowadays one of the more revered Nintendo consoles, at the time just didn't make it as it should have. Nintendo after the GameCube would learn to cater to more casual audience with the Wii and the DS. However, during the GameCube time, it was a bit of a struggle for them. But yeah, at the end of the day, I like the GameCube. It has some of my favorite games on it from Nintendo. It's got a really good controller. It's got a lot of charm. It has a handle. And to be honest, it's just got a lot of character to it. So, final verdict? Why does it have a handle, Nintendo? What were you expecting people to do with this thing?